This next book is another book that everybody knows of, like How to Win Friends and Influence People. But this is a finance book, and honestly, I read it once when I was 18, so like a good 8 years ago. But all I needed was that one time to read it to for it to get stuck in my head. People talk about red pill, right? And they make it about women and men relationship and that shit, right? But the real red pill is something that changes your perspective on all the reality. And for me, my red pill was this Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. How many copies sold? It doesn't say. Does it say on here? No, but tens of millions of copies sold. I did read about it online. And yeah, this book, it tells you everything you need to know about finance. If you want a financial book that's going to give you the foundation, remember, keyword foundation, of what you need to do to get rich, it's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Don't listen to any other finance books. Don't read any other finance books until you read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I ain't even going to say too much because I read it all in one go. It's a quick read. And I want people to actually pick up a book and learn rather than me telling you all the information. But yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. The main takeaways I got from it are that there's two things when it comes to personal finance. There's managing assets and managing liabilities, right? And basically, an asset is something that's going to generate money and go up in value. A liability is something that's going to cost you money and go down in value. And it basically tells you that the rich, they invest their money into assets to grow their wealth, and the middle class and working class invest their money in liabilities. So the rich actually put money into shit that generates wealth and appreciates and will benefit them in the long run. The poor, middle class, whatever, working class, they buy liabilities which makes them look rich, but really they're losing money and they're going to depreciate in the long run. Cool. What's an example of an asset? An example of an asset is a business. An example of an asset is a rental property. An example of an asset is like a bonds, stocks, shares. These are assets. Liabilities are cars and drip, clothes, trainers. Assets and liabilities. So he basically says, if you want to get rich, stop buying drip, stop buying cars. Put your money into assets, and once you have the assets that are generating your return, so once the assets are paying for themselves, then put that into liabilities so you can afford it. Don't just do like job liabilities like 99% of the population do. Job, asset, and then asset, and then liability. So I can literally make a whole diagram about this book, man. It's really interesting and it's really helpful when it comes to generating money. And there's a few other principles to go into from this book. It's basically the ultimate book on financial freedom. If you look at my financial freedom series on the podcast, it's all based off Rich Dad Poor Dad, man. All principles from that book. Personal finance, net worth, multiple streams of income. It all comes from this book, man. And I only read it once to have a good understanding. I might have to revisit it again just to brush up on my knowledge. But disclaimer, the one caveat I've got with this book, so I read it when I was 18, and he basically said that, and this is the biggest takeaway as well. So the rich person, his rich dad, his poor dad works for money. I think his poor dad was like a teacher or some shit. So he worked for a living, right? As does 99% of the population. His rich dad, on the other hand, made money work for him. So me reading this book as an ignorant 18-year-old, I was in college and I was thinking, so rich people make money work for them and poor people work for money. Why the fuck do I want to work for money for? That's literally the mindset this book put me in. you know, as an 18-year-old that's still figuring out his life. But really, when you want to put real life in perspective and implement it, you're thinking, nah, first you work for your money and then you invest your money. You don't just start on third base. You know, you do if you're lucky, but, you know, if you've got a rich family, whatever. But, you know, you work, hard work, then asset, and then, you know, make your money work for you, and then you buy whatever the hell you want, and then you don't need to work a 9 to 5. But yeah, important book. And yeah, so my caveat is it puts you in that mindset where it makes you like anti 9 to 5. It makes you disrespect the hard working man, which I think is actually disgusting, because the hard working man is what we need to have a strong society, to be honest. And also, all this invest in asset, invest in this, invest in that. How are you gonna do it if you don't have money, right? And the only way to make money legally is, and if you don't have a rich family to get a loan off, you know, you need to work a 9 to 5, and that's just it. But yeah, man, rich dad, poor dad, financial freedom, man, you know, that's the goal for me. Whew.